Okay. Does everybody know the words to this song? No. But guess what? We have the words to the song. This is a song, just a little quick. Nitai Padakamala Koti Chandra. Koti Chandra. How many moons is that? Millions. Millions of moons. And Su Shitala. The lotus feet of Lord Nityananda are soothing and cooling like millions of moons. Koti Chandra Shu Shitala. This is a nice song by a great Vaishnav, Narottam Das Thakur, honoring Lord Nityananda. And I've been told that someone here is going to be able to sing it very nicely. And so those of you that can carry a tune, you can sing responsively. So when you sing this song, do you want to go back to the refrain at the beginning each time or just keep going through?
Yes, Maharaj, maybe first 3 lines. Yeah.
Each time back?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So here's the lotus feet of Lord Nityananda. So we'll sing the song and then we'll go back and hear the refrain and then sing the next stanza and then we'll go through the translation. Nice glorification of Lord Nityananda.
Nitai pada kamala Koti chandra shashitala Je chaya jagat chura Nitai
pada kamala Koti chandra shushitala Jaya jagata jura
Hey no nitai bin bhat Radha Krishna paite na Drida kori dharo nitai pa Hey no nitai bin Radha Krishna paite na Drida kori dharo Nitai pada kamala Koti chandra shushitala Je chaya jagat chura Nitai pada kamala Koti chandra shushitala Je chaya jagat से संबंध नाही जा वृथा जन्मा गेलोता से पशु भो
वृथ जन्म गेलो ता সেই পশু বড় দূর নিতাই নব মুখে মাজিল সংসার সুখে বিদ্যাকুলে কি করিবে তা নিতাই না বলিল মুখে মাজিল সংসার সুখে বিদ্যাকুলে করিবে তা নিতাই পাদ কমলা कोटि चंद्र शशितला जे छाया जगत चूड़ा अहंकारा मत होया निताय पद पाशरेया हस तेरे सत्या कोरी मानी अहंकारा मत होया निताय पद पाशरेया हस तेरे सत्या कोरी मानी निताय करुणा हाबे ब्रजे राधा कृष्ण पाबे धारो निताय चरण दुखा निताय पाद कमला कोटि चंद्र शशितला जे छाया जगत चूड़ा निताय चरण सत्या ताहर सेवक नित्या निताय पादा सदा करो आशा निताय चरण सत्या ताहर सेवक नित्या नरोत्तम बडो दुखी निताई मोरे करो सुखी राखो रांगा चरणेरा पाशा नरोत्तम बडो दुखी निताई मोरे करो सुखी राखो रंगा चरणेरा पाशा निताय पद कमला कोटि चंद्र सुशीतला जे छाया जगत झुरा निताय पद कमला कोटि चंद्र सुशीतला जे छाया जगता जुरा हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 रामा राम राम हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 रामा राम राम हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 रामा राम राम हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 रामा राम राम हरे हरे
The translation, there's the lotus feet, Lord Nityananda's lotus feet. He's got a plow, just in case he wants to be the mood of Balaram. And here's the translation of Narottam Das Thakur's celebrated song, Nitai Pada Kamala. The lotus feet of Lord Nityananda are a shelter where one will get the soothing moonlight of not only one, but millions of moons. Confirmed. If the world wants to have real peace, it should take shelter of Lord Nityananda. Unless one takes shelter under the shade of the lotus feet of Lord Nityananda, it will be very difficult for him to approach Radha Krishna. If one actually wants to enter into the dancing party of Radha Krishna, he must firmly catch hold of the lotus feet of Lord Nityananda. Anyone who has not established his relationship with Nityananda Prabhu is understood to have spoiled his valuable human birth. Such a human being is actually an uncontrollable animal because he never uttered the holy name of Nityananda. He has become merged into so-called material happiness, what can his useless education and family tradition do to help him? Being maddened after false prestige and identification with the body, one is thinking, oh, what is Nityananda? What can he do for me? I don't care. The result is that he is accepting something false to be truth. If you actually want to approach the association of Radha Krishna, you must first achieve the mercy of Lord Nityananda. When he is merciful toward you, then you'll be able to approach Radha Krishna. Therefore, you should firmly grasp the lotus feet of Lord Nityananda. And the final verse, the lotus feet of Nityananda are not illusion, they are a fact. One who engages in the transcendental loving service of Nityananda is also transcendental. Always try to catch the lotus feet of Lord Nityananda. This Narottam Das is very unhappy, and therefore I'm praying to Lord Nityananda to make me happy. My dear Lord, please keep me close to your lotus feet. Here's his lotus feet, or the marks on the bottoms of his lotus feet. And here's a deity form of Lord Nityananda with his lotus feet and ankle ornaments. And another deity, I don't know where these deities are, but he's showing his feet. So during this weekend, my thought was to do something time on Thursday when we observed the actual appearance day of Lord Nityananda. There wasn't sufficient time because it's going to take at least 3 hours or more. And you know how it is when there's a public program, the kids want to do something, and there's the Abhishek, and there's not enough time. So I thought, Lord Nityananda ki jai. Let's get into it together. And so I'm going to begin with another presentation that has 3 parts. And the topic is Lord Nityananda's appearance day, or his appearance, or his transcendental presence. And we heard from Narottam Das Thakur 3 times how important it is to get the mercy of Lord Nityananda in order to have access to Radha Krishna. What to speak of the rasa dance of Radha Krishna, just access to Radha Krishna. It's first he just encourages, and then it's like it's imperative. So let's try to appreciate and offer our prayers to Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, to be their representatives, because they together, the sun and the moon, how do the sun and moon simultaneously rise? When Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda appeared, that's how. They have arisen simultaneously on the horizon of Gauda to dissipate the darkness of ignorance, and thus wonderfully bestow benediction upon all. So when Lord Nityananda manifests, Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela wants us to know that he has 5 different manifestations. It's not the same as the Panchatattva, but these 5 manifestations issue from the fact that he's the presiding deity of Sandhini Shakti, the potency of eternal existence. I'm looking around the room to see if everybody's giving me a blank stare. What does that mean? He's the presiding deity of Sandini Shakti. Who is the presiding deity of Balaram or Nityananda Ram? That's this Mula Sankarshan. Mula Sankarshan, what does that mean? Mula means root. And from the root comes expansions. And we're going to hear shortly what expansions come from him. And he's the Mula Sankarshan, and he manifests the whole of the spiritual world. How does he do so? The Sandini potency. Wow. But let's do this. It's not like once upon a time Balaram or Nityananda Ram was there saying, you know what, it'd be really nice to have a spiritual world, and poof, there comes the spiritual world. It's not a chronological event. Rather, the spiritual world is eternal, and the Sandini potency is eternal, and Balaram is the Lord or presiding deity of the eternal spiritual world. It's one of his services. He manifests the spiritual world. But it's not like a chronological event. But he's the Lord of that's the whole spiritual world, the Sandini potency. He's very powerful. That's why he has the name Bala. Spiritual power, the Sandini potency. And he, as the Mula Sankarshan, expands in various features. And here we find those various features. May Nityananda Ram be the object of my constant remembrance, Sankarshan, from the Mula Sankarshan, the first Sankarshan. Sheshanag, and the Vishnus, there's three of them, who lie on the Karana ocean, Garbha ocean, and the ocean of milk, are his plenary portions and the portions of his plenary portions. If you look up in the Sanskrit, you see Angsa and Kala. Angsa means his plenary portion. Kala, it's a little technical, but it's a portion of the plenary portion. That's the Vishnu expansions. Karna, Dakshay Vishnu, Garbha Dakshay Vishnu, Shira Dakshay Vishnu, the three Vishnus. They're dealing with the affairs of the material world, and those three Vishnu forms are Kala expansions of Mula Sankarshan. I mean, these are truths about Nityananda Ram. So there's details and details and details. This is just an introductory verse that's expanded and expanded and expanded in chapter 5. But this is from chapter 1, just setting statements that are later expanded. And the Angsa means plenary. The same as Mula Sankarshan is the first Sankarshan. But one is the source, the other is the expansion from the source. The potency is not different, but like those of you that like to read Prabhupada's books, you know that Vishnu has some percentage of all of the characteristics of Krishna. But he doesn't have, there are 5 of the characteristics of Krishna that he doesn't have. Yes? Is that right? Okay. Just checking. But Vishnu has the other aspect besides those 5 almost in full. And Krishna has them in full. So Vishnu is the Kala, the portion of the plenary portion, and Sankarshan and Anantashesh. Now where's Anantashesh? Where do you find, if you wanted to find Anantashesh, what do you do? Bottom of the universe, right? There's other places too. There's other places. And you can when you read the fifth canto, you'll find out where those other places are. But that's the primary place where we know that he's residing, because on his hoods he holds up all the different parts of the universe. Anantashesh. And from his mouth come glories that know no end, as he's glorifying the personality of Godhead. So this is the Nityananda Ram that we're encouraged by Narottam Das Thakur, and also we saw earlier Srila Prabhupada is encouraging us to take shelter of, so that we can get access to the six Goswamis, so that we can get access to Radha and Krishna. The place where he appeared was in Ekachakra. Now we often speak of these two, Nityananda and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as two brothers. And they're eternally brothers. But biologically or geographically also, they don't have the same mother and father, nor were they born in the same place. But that's okay. They're brothers. And the place where Lord Nityananda was born was Ekachakra. And what you see on the right side is a photograph of the place where he took birth. The actual physical location where he took birth, from his mother Padmavati and his father Hadai Pandit or Hadai Oja. And usually that little Garbhavas is locked, but sometimes it's not. And what's inside is what you see on the left side. In a seated posture is Lord Nityananda. And on another day, here's Lord Nityananda residing in that Garbhavas. Chaitanya Bhagavat describes that the very moment that he appeared, there's a nearby place, Mayura, not in Ekachakra, but very nearby, where there's a deity called Mayureshwara, Shiva. There you see a photograph of the deity of Mayureshwara, Lord Shiva. And when the very moment where Lord Nityananda appeared, he roared so loudly that all the way where Advaita Acharya lived, which is quite some distance away, Advaita Acharya could hear, and Advaita Acharya could understand why Lord Shiva was roaring. Seeing Nitai, Lord Shankara danced exactly like a peacock. In this way, he fulfilled the purpose of his name, because Mayura means peacock. And he roared and he danced. Mayureshwara is the deity of Shiva near Ekachakra. He is known as Mayureshwara because he is the Ishwara of the village named Mayura. However, by seeing Nityananda's appearance, Shiva actually started dancing like a peacock, Mayura. By doing so, his name, Mayureshwara, a peacock-like dancing Lord, was fulfilled. So many of you have seen peacocks dancing. If you haven't, visit Gitanagari, because they have lots of peacocks. How many here have been to Gitanagari? Many of you, okay. Here's a little history. Once upon a time, there wasn't a law about bringing birds into the country. So they didn't break the law, there wasn't a law that said you can't do it. So they brought a male and a female peacock. Now, Juniata County is filled with peacocks. Not just in the farm around Gitanagari, but the whole county. They propagate. And they're during certain season, It's common in Vrindavan during the rainy season, but there's not exactly a rainy season. But when it's rain, the peacocks come out and they do this, and they start dancing around. They're interesting birds. And when one starts to call out, there's a chorus of response. Call and response, right? And then it gets quiet, and then another one calls out. It's kind of like dogs barking, but the peacocks doing their peacock sound. They're very nice. So here's the place where Mayureshwara Shiva is worshipped today. And there's the little temple surrounding where he's worshipped in the town nearby, Mayura. We know that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also had some interaction with Lord Shiva in the course of his travel in South India. It's not described in detail, but as he was going through a forested area, he saw the disguised form of Lord Shiva and Parvati. Here it doesn't look like much of a disguise, but when he went there, they were dressed as brahmanas, and immediately Lord Chaitanya recognized, and they recognized him, and there was a very nice exchange. It's not an extensive section of Chaitanya Charitamrita, but there was some interaction. So near the birthplace of Chaitanya, of Nityananda, the Adivas, or Garbhavas, is this deity in the main temple, Neem deity of Lord Nityananda. You can see from the base, he's standing on a blue lotus. This is Lord Nityananda. And there's an adjacent altar where there's three forms, with Nityananda in the center, and to his left, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, or to our right, Lord Chaitanya, and to his right is Advaita Charya. So like our Panchatattva, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita. These are the three Vishnu Tattva forms of Lord Chaitanya and his associates. Then Gadadhar and Srivas are not Vishnu Tattva forms, but they're associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So in this case, in Ekachakra, Lord Nityananda is in the middle. At his place of birth is Janmastan, and Lord Nityananda is reaching out in the mudra, is giving his mercy. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is giving his benediction hand to those who take shelter there. And on the side, there's a very nice painting of Lord Nityananda. I like this painting very much. And you walk out, it is kind of a courtyard. This is the house of Hadai Pandit. And inside the courtyard is where he and his family lived. And you go outside the gate of that courtyard, and if you go out and make a right, you'll come to another structure where you'll see the place where, as a small boy, Lord Nityananda discovered the deity Banka Roy. Banka Roy. Banka means crooked or bent over or hunched. And it is said that Lord Nityananda was taking bath in the river. There's a tributary of the river Jamuna that flows right through that area. And he found the deity in the river. And he personally worshipped the deity. This deity, Banka Roy, is now across the street where the son of Virabhadra, the son of Lord Nityananda, and Janava resided and worshipped this deity there. Very nice deity. So it's the deity of Krishna, Bankaroy, and Radharani to his left, and Janava to his right. And the place where they found the deity is a place called Kadamba Kandi. Kadamba Kandi has its own little shrine, or Kadam, or Kadamba Kandi. There's a mandap in front, and then down to the left, that's where the temple itself is. And here's the deities found inside. Sadbhuj form of Lord Chaitanya, and of course in the center, Gaur Nitai, a nice deity of Krishna. This is their altar there. And this is at the place, marking the place where the Banka Roy deity was found. So now we're going to hear about his childhood pastimes. He's made his appearance. It's described, Ekachakra, during the time of Lord Nityananda's appearance, it was a celebrated place of learning. There were many elevated brahmanas and young brahmana boys that would attend school. It was a robust place. Agriculture was abundant. Education was very elevated. It was a celebrated place of high learning during that time when he appeared. And from his childhood, Lord Nityananda, not the same, but quite similar to what we find with Prahlad Maharaj, he just wasn't interested in worldly things. He was only interested in spiritual things. And of the spiritual things he was interested in, he was particularly interested in the pastimes of Krishna and other incarnations of the Lord, but especially Krishna and some of Ramachandra. And they're described in detail. And the detail is so nice, I'm going to read. Here's from that section. In his childhood, Nitai enacted the pastimes of Sri Krishna. In this way, he tasted all the pastimes of his younger brother. Who was his younger brother? Balaram's younger brother, Krishna. The very pastimes which Ananta Shesh glorifies every moment are now being relished by him directly in the form of Sri Nitai. So, I'm going to read. It's hard to replicate, but it's nice to hear the words of Vrindavan Das Thakur because he's so elegant and eloquent. No one could recognize Lord Nityananda due to the influence of his illusory energy. The Nityananda remained hidden as he enjoyed childhood pastimes with other children. The pastimes that the Lord enjoyed with his were all related to the activities of Lord Krishna. And then it gives examples. He and his friends formed an assembly of demigods, and one of them, acting as Mother Earth, offered prayers to them all. They then led Mother Earth to the riverbank, and the children all began to offer prayers. The ocean of milk, right? Then one of the boys, hidden from view, loudly declared, "I will soon take birth in Mathura, Gokula." One evening, the Lord and his friends had acted the marriage of Vasudeva and Devaki. Then, late one night, while everyone slept, they made a prison and enacted the birth of Lord Krishna. They created a Gokula and Krishna was taken there and exchanged with Mahamaya, thereby tricking King Kamsa. Another time, they dressed someone as Putana, and someone else climbed on her chest to suck her breast. One day, Nityananda and his boyfriends made a shakata, or handcart, out of reeds, and then broke it. Another day, the Lord and his friends stole from the houses of the neighboring cowherd men. The boys never left Nityananda's association to go home, but continued sporting with him day and night. The children's parents did not complain, rather they would affectionately embrace Nityananda. They said, "We have never seen such transcendental sports. How did this child know so many of Krishna's pastimes?" One day the Lord made snakes out of leaves and then took his friends to the water. One of them jumped into the water and remained there inert. Later, the Lord brought him back to consciousness. Another day, the Lord and his friends went to Talavan, where they killed Dhenukasura and then ate tal fruits. Nityananda and his childhood friends went into the fields and enjoyed various pastimes such as killing Bakasura, Agasura, and Vatsasura. In the afternoon, the Lord and his associates returned home, blowing buffalo horns. One day they enjoyed the pastimes of lifting Govardhan Hill, and another day they created a Vrindavan, wherein they enjoyed various sports. One day they enacted Krishna's pastime of stealing the gopis' clothes, and another day they enacted his meeting the wives of the Brahmanas. On one occasion, a boy dressed as Narada with a beard and gave Kamsa some confidential information. Another day, one boy dressed as Akrura and took Krishna and Balaram to Kamsa's capital. As Nityananda cried in the mood of the gopis, it appeared to his friends that a river was flowing from his eyes. Due to the influence of Vishnu's illusory energy, no one could recognize Nityananda as he enjoyed pastimes with his friends. The children arranged a city of Mathura and then wandered through its streets. Some played the role of a gardener, and someone accepted a flower garland from him. Someone dressed as Kubja, and sandalwood pulp was accepted from her. A large bow was made, and they all shouted in joy when it was broken. They enacted the pastime of killing Kulvyapita, elephant, and the wrestlers Chandra and Mushtaka. Thereafter, Kamsa was grabbed by the hair and thrown to the ground. After killing Kamsa, the Lord danced with his friends in such a way that everyone watching began to laugh. In this way, Nityananda and his friends imitated the pastimes of the various incarnations. One day, Nityananda dressed like Vamana and went to cheat Bali Maharaj out of his kingdom, which covered the three worlds. Someone played the role of the aged Shukracharya, who forbade Bali from giving the 3 steps. After accepting the gift, the Lord placed his last step on the head of Bali. One day, Nityananda enacted the pastime of building a bridge across the ocean, with the boys playing the role of monkeys. They cut castor oil plants and made a bridge across the water. Then all the boys exclaimed, "Jai Raghunath!" Nityananda accepted the role of Lakshmana, who angrily went with a bow in his hand to chastise Sugriva. "Oh, king of the monkeys, my lord is in distress. Come quickly or I'll kill you. How can you sit here enjoying with women while he is lamenting? in Malyavan mountain. Another day, Nityananda spoke in anger to Parshuram. "O Brahmana, I am not at fault. Leave here at once." Lord Nityananda was absorbed in the mood of Lakshmana. The boys, however, could not understand this and thought it was just a game. On another occasion, 5 boys took the role of 5 monkeys, and the Lord took the role of Lakshmana. "Who are your monkeys wandering in the forest?" "I am the servant of Lord Ramachandra. Tell me who you are." They replied, "We are wandering out of fear of Vali. Please take us to Ramachandra. We wish to take the dust of his lotus feet." The Lord embraced them and led them to Ramachandra, whereupon they all fell at his feet. One day, the Lord enacted the pastime of killing Indrajit, the son of Ravana, and one day, in the mood of Lakshmana, he accepted defeat. Someone in the role of Vibhishana was brought before Ramachandra, and Rama performed his Abhishek, or coronation, installing him as the king of Lanka. One boy said, "I am the mighty Ravana. Now I'm releasing the Shakti Shela weapon. Stop it if you can, Lakshmana." Here's the drawing that goes with it. Saying this, the boy threw a lotus flower at Nityananda, and in the mood of Lakshmana, he fell to the ground. After the Lord, in the mood of Lakshmana, fell unconscious, all the boys tried in vain to revive him. When they found that no symptom of life remained in the body of Nityananda, they all held their hands and began to cry. The Lord's father and mother came running there and also observed that there was no sign of life in their son. Then they all fell to the ground unconscious. Everyone who saw this tragedy was struck with wonder. But there's a good, happy ending. As the boys described the entire incident, someone said, "I understand why he's unconscious. Previously, one great actor played the role of Dasarath, and when he heard that Ram had left for the forest, he left his body." Someone else said, "There is a boy dressed as Hanuman. If he gives him medicine, he'll be cured." Before the incident, the Lord instructed his friends, "When I fall unconscious, you should gather around me and cry. After a while, send Hanuman for some medicine. I will recover when he puts the medicine to my nose." When the Lord fell unconscious in his own mood, the boys were all bewildered. Because they were so confused, they could not remember the Lord's instruction. They simply cried loudly, "Oh, brother, please get up." When the boys heard the people's comments, they remembered Nityananda's instruction, and the boy dressed as Hanuman immediately went for the medicine. Another boy dressed as a renunciate welcomed Hanuman with fruits and roots. Now there's commentary that says in Valmiki Ramayana there's no confrontation with a Gandharva. But other versions of Ramayana, there's a confrontation with a Gandharva. So this person dressed as a mendicant said to Hanuman, "My dear sir, please stay and grace my ashram. It is a great fortune to meet such a person as you." Hanuman replied, "I must go and complete my important mission. I would like to come, but I cannot delay. You must have heard that Lakshmana, the brother of Lord Ramachandra, has been rendered unconscious by the Shakti Shela weapon of Ravana. Therefore, I'm going to Gandhamadana hill to bring medicine. Only then will he survive. The renunciant then said, if you must go, first take a bath and eat something. Then you may go. The two boys repeated what Nityananda had instructed them. Therefore, everyone gazed at them in astonishment as they listened to their conversation. Then, on the request of the renunciant, Hanuman went to take bath in the lake, whereupon another boy in the lake grabbed hold of his feet. That boy played the role of a crocodile, trying to pull Hanuman into the water, but Hanuman pulled the boy to the shore. After a short fight, Hanuman defeated the crocodile. When Hanuman returned to the renunciant's ashram, he saw a mighty warrior dressed as a Rakshasa. That boy rushed at Hanuman with the intention of eating him. He challenged, you have defeated the crocodile, but how will you defeat me? I will eat you. Then who will revive Lakshmana? Hanuman replied, you're Ravana's a dog. I consider him most insignificant. Get out of my way. In this way, the two first exchanged some harsh words. Then they began pulling each other's hair. And finally, they began striking each other with their fists. After promptly defeating the demon, Hanuman approached the Gandhamadana hill. There, Hanuman fought with some boys who were dressed like Gandharvas. After defeating the Gandharvas, Hanuman took the Gandhamadana hill on his head to Lanka. Another boy, playing the role of a doctor, remembered Lord Ram as he held the medicine to Lakshmana's nose. At that very moment, Lord Nityananda regained his consciousness, upon which his parents and others there all smiled in relief. Hadai Pandit embraced his son, and all the boys became overjoyed. Everyone asked, dear son, where have you learned all this? The Lord smiled and said, these are my pastimes. So his childhood pastimes. That's the section I wanted to read. In his early childhood, the Lord was most attractive. No one wanted to let him go from their laps. Everyone had more affection for Nityananda than they had for their own sons, but no one could recognize him due to the influence of Lord Vishnu. All of his friends left their parents to constantly sport in the company of Nityananda. I offer repeated obeisances to the feet of those boys who enjoyed the association of Lord Nityananda. As you can see, Chaitanya Bhagavat is very wonderful literature. By the time Nityananda reached the age of 12, that's the very year that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared, which means that Nityananda was 12 years older than Mahaprabhu. When they were finally united, so we're not going to get there this evening, but when they were finally united, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was 20. Which means that Nityananda was 32. So we're going to hear some more about that as we go along. But so the scene is similar to the scene when Vishvamitra Muni came to ask of Dasarath to please send your son with me to kill the demon. So the details are different, but the bhava is quite similar. A mendicant sannyasi came to Ekachakra. Again, the picture is Ekachakra was a seat of higher learning. many, many brahmanas, very opulent, very special place. And because Hadai Pandit was the most respected amongst all the Brahmana community, the sannyasi was taken to his home. He received him as one is supposed to receive an elevated person, a sannyasi, bathed, fed, took care of him, discussion on topics, transcendental topics all night long. And then in the morning, as he was parting, the Brahmana made a request. The sannyasi Brahmana made a request. And of course, the Brahmana sannyasi making request, Hadai Pandit is going to say, yes, whatever you like, just as Ram did. I'm traveling alone. I'd like to travel with your son. Please send your son with me. Same as Dasrath. He can't say no, but he can't say yes. So he was speechless. And it's a very moving scene. It's nice to describe it from Chaitanya Bhagavat. But the sannyasi turned and walked down the road. Here's the road that he walked down. And Hadai Pandit and Padmavati simply stared into the distance as their beloved Nitai left. So what did he do from the age of 12 until 32? That's 20 years. What did he do for 20 years? He went to many, many places of pilgrimage. Similar, not of a much longer duration, but similar to what Balaram did. Balaram went to places of pilgrimage. Nityananda went to places of pilgrimage. The list is a long list, very long list. And one of the places he visited was Pandharpur. And when he was in Pandharpur, he saw the deity of Vittal, and he also met Lakshmipati Tirtha. And when he was at Lakshmipati Tirtha, he received mantra diksha from Lakshmipati Tirtha. And he then continued in his going to his places of pilgrimage. So I'm going to read a little bit about the place, one of the two places that he stayed while in Vrindavan. Shringar means decoration. It's this place where he spent not lots and lots of time, but there's a banyan tree at a place where when Krishna departed from the Rasa dance and Radha came with him, he sat with Radha and decorated Radha's hair with flowers. And Nityananda Prabhu, while he stayed here, he also knew the place as a place where the cowherd boys would come with Krishna and they would do similar play games. Here's the text. Nityananda Prabhu performed his pastimes here as a cowherd boy in the mood of Balaram. He would bathe, play games, and splash water into the Jamuna. He would splash the Jamuna with Jamuna water. As a transcendental madman. In the mood of a small child. And there were other cowherd boys who happened to be in the vicinity, and he would play with the other cowherd boys like he was a little cowherd boy. And then he would sit under this tree. And so the tree, this is now the next generation, because the old tree during his time died, but there was a graft of the branch from that original tree that then grew. And now it's known as Nityananda Vat, a banyan tree. you can see on the left side, that structure is where he would sit, and the place on the right side, there's a small temple. So I'm just going to read a little bit, starting from Madhya Lila, chapter 3, starting from verse 115. So Nityananda is now on tour, but he's staying for a substantial time in Vrindavan. No one could recognize Nityananda, the origin of Ananta, as he roared loudly on seeing his previous birthplace. He remained always in the mood of a child, without displaying any other mood, as he sported in the dust of Vrindavan. In this way, Nityananda Prabhu resided in Vrindavan, while in Navadvip, Gaurachandra revealed himself. The Lord constantly engaged in Sankirtan in great happiness, yet he became unhappy on not seeing Nityananda. Nityananda, understanding that the Lord had manifested himself, he waited in Vrindavan for this moment. On realizing this, he immediately went to Navadvip, where he stayed in the house of Nandan Acharya. So, the pastime of Lord Nityananda residing at the house of Nandan Acharya is a very special pastime, which we're going to recite during the part 2. There's some nice paintings of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda meeting one another for the first time. So while he was still in Vrindavan, one of the places he stayed was at Radhakund, and now you see the sitting place of Nityananda, Nityananda Baitak it's called, and there's that same painting that's found in his birthplace in Ekachakra on the altar, and then a little indication of the lotus feet of Lord Nityananda. So he was waiting and waiting and waiting, because his mood, Nityananda's mood, was a totally transcendental mood. Known as it was like a madman. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was still, prior to this time, in another phase of his pastimes. He was in the phase of his pastimes was that of a scholar, Nimai Pandit. And as soon as Nimai Pandit accepted Diksha from Ishwarapuri, then everything changed. The Leela completely changed. The mood completely changed. Everything completely changed. And when he then, some things happened, but then he then returned to Navadvip, and he now, Nimai Pandit still, because he hadn't accepted Sri Krishna Chaitanya, nomenclature as a sannyasi, he is still a grahastha, but he's now performing pastimes as a Vaishnav instead of merely a scholar. And when that happened, omniscient Nityananda knew, and he made his way to Navadvip to meet his dear Nimai for the first time. And it's a very wonderful event and wonderful exchange. We'll hear about it tomorrow. Now, I decided to break this up into 3 parts because there's the details are so sweet, and actually there's further details than I've done so far, but the details are so sweet to mention the pastime without going into the details. It's not as satisfying. The picture that we get is that he, Nityananda, was aware of his identity. He was aware of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's identity, but he was also exercising or expanding the Yogamaya potency, so that while he was doing what he was doing, others weren't recognizing who he was and what he was doing. They just loved him. Similar to Krishna's passage to Vrindavan, they didn't understand him as Bhagavan. The residents of Vrindavan didn't understand him in that way, even though he was exhibiting pastimes of the all-powerful Supreme Lord. So how can a little boy know all these pastimes? And he said, these are my pastimes. But the Yogamaya didn't permit them to understand. So they were just relishing. So when he left, it's described that when he left, something similar to what happened to Dasarath. He couldn't live without Nimai. No, excuse me, Nitai. He couldn't live without his son. He couldn't eat. He couldn't work. Couldn't do anything. And eventually he just gave up his life. And Padmavati, same. And all the residents in this, at one time, very prosperous village of Ekachakra, people just gradually moved away. They couldn't bear to see the same place without Nitai. And so slowly, it dissipated. This little section which I just described is explained in Bhakti Ratnakar. Because in Bhakti Ratnakar, there's a nice section where after Lord Nityananda's departure, Janava wants to go to the birthplace because of her husband, or Lord Nityananda, because she had never been there. And when she went there with others, and they were narrating this history that I just described. By the time she went there, it was just a deserted place. I mean, think of some places are the seats of high learning. I don't know, Harvard and MIT or something like that kind of situation for the West, or the seats of high learning of the wealth and education and everything. This became a wasteland. And it's a nice description. As they approached in Bhakti Ratnakar, they're walking along a road to get to Ekachakra, and they saw an old man, lame, walking very slowly. So they approached him and asked, what is this place? And he said, it's Ekachakra. So this old man, in Bhakti Ratnakar, starts describing the history and the pastimes. That as he lived during the time of Lord Nityananda, he had that experience. Very special section of Bhakti Ratnakar. So in the rest of Bhakti Ratnakar, Janava similarly goes to other places, and it gives that history. We've been going for about an hour and 20 minutes. And there may be some topic that you'd like to discuss, so I'm going to stop here and see if there's some discussion, some comments or questions or anything. I've been to this house many times. I've never seen this many people in the house. Saturday night, that's the reason?
2-3 years because of the COVID and all, not much big gathering.
Okay.
A lot of devotees have come from Novi, Farmington area also.
Really? Good thing you have a good big space here. I see a hand way in the back.
Hare Krishna. Question is when Lord Nityananda was in Vrindavan,
When Nityananda was in Vrindavan,
he was waiting for Lord's
something's not
appearance.
good with the sound system. Can we fix that? Keep speaking.
It's okay.
Keep speaking.
Was too much. Lord Nityananda is in Vrindavan and waiting for Lord's appearance. After Lord's appearance, he took 20 to meet Lord Nityananda, to meet Gauranga
He was
Mahaprabhu.
on tour for 20 years.
So, 20 years, like you said, he was waiting in Vrindavan.
No, he wasn't in Vrindavan for 20 years.
Okay.
He traveled all throughout India. You want to hear the list of the places he went? It's described.
We can sit some other time, I think.
You want me to summarize? Sure. Here it is. So I'm reading from text 108 to 114 from Chaitanya Bhagavat, Madhya Lila, chapter 3. The most magnanimous Nityananda visited Gaya, Kashi, Prayag, Mathura, Dwarka, the ashram of Naranarayan. He went to the place of the Buddhists and the residences of Vyas. He visited Ranganath, Setu Bandha, and the Malaya Hills. He then went to Anantapur and fearlessly traveled through the uninhabited forests. He visited the Gomati, Gandaki, Sarayu, and Kaveri rivers. He also went to Ayodhya and then wandered through the forest of Dandakaranya. He went to Tirumala, Venkatanath, Sapta Godavari, the abode of Lord Shiva, and Kanyakumari. Lord Nityananda visited the Reva river, Mahishmati, Mala Tirtha, and Haridwar, where the Ganges descended in ancient times. In this way, after traveling to all the holy places, Lord Nityananda returned to Mathura. That's the 20 years. Try it, no trains, no planes, walking. No taxis. Haridwar and Setubandha and all around. Okay.
So, Maharaj, I think the follow-up question to that, or maybe Prabhu had that question inside that why Lord Nityananda took 20 years to meet Chaitanya Mahaprabhu after his appearance?
He was waiting for him to become a Vaishnav. Because when he appeared, he was a baby, and then he did his childhood pastimes, and then he became the scholar pastimes. So your question was why 20? That was the question? Oh, I thought it was like, what did he do for those 20? He was waiting for Mahaprabhu to become a Vaishnav. And when he accepted initiation and enacted pastimes of a Vaishnav, he sent him a text message. Yeah. Well, how he called him, I mean, we'll attend the discussion tomorrow. It's not exactly, he called him. They're both omniscient. And we're going to hear, Mahaprabhu had a dream that, something happened. And that the indication is a great personality has come to Navadvip. Go find him. So the two lords understood. But when Nityananda came to Navadvip, he hid because he wanted Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to disclose his omniscience. And he did. It's a nice description. You know the story, right? Okay. He sent two devotees looking all day long they couldn't find. And they came back and said, we couldn't find. He said, I know where he is. Let's go to the house of Nandanacharya. And he went there, and the two lords met. He got Mahaprabhu to disclose his hand of being omniscient. And the two lords met, and everyone was astonished at the love that they expressed for one another openly. Tomorrow.
Any other question? Maybe I can ask another one.
Go ahead.
Sometime devotee asked this question also, that in any other appearances of the Lord, like Lord Ram, Lakshman, they were brothers. Krishna, Balram, they appeared as brothers. But Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu did not appear exactly as brothers in different families to different parents. So how do we relate or understand that?
It's pastime. They're transcendental brothers. That's how to understand it. I mean, I don't have a problem with it. It's just that there's variegatedness in the Lord's pastimes, and they're transcendental brothers. And so Lakshmana was older, Balaram was older, and Nityananda was 12 years older. So there's differences. But the mood, even he was 12 years older, his mood was subservient. Always. He looked up. And when he was 32 years old, he was an avaduta. We'll hear. He behaved like a little boy. He behaved such a little boy that he wouldn't even feed himself. Malini had to feed him with her hand. He would sit and he would put food in his mouth and he would chew and smile. Giving, the motherly service, affectionate service of Malini to this 32-year-old boy sitting in her kitchen. He performed pastimes like a madman. Wow. You have something?
Maharaj, please excuse me for this question. This is as a curiosity, Maharaj.
Curiosity question.
Yes, Maharaj. Maharaj, you mentioned about Mayureshwar Shiva,
Yeah.
and he actually roared loudly and danced.
Yeah.
Trying to understand this Lord.
Go ahead. Just keep speaking.
Lord Shiva, his worshipable deity is Shankarshan, isn't it, Maharaj?
Say it again.
Lord Shiva's worshipable deity
Yeah.
is Lord Shankarshan, I
Okay.
believe. Generally, I have not heard any pastimes or any leelas of Shankarshana. I mean, is there any significant reason or attraction of Lord Shiva's attraction towards Lord Shankarshan?
Why not? I mean, he wears Ananta Shesh. We heard there are these 5 expansions. Sankarshan is one, Ananta Shesh is another. So he wears snakes around his neck. Lord Shiva wears snakes around his neck. So who are the snakes? They're descendants of Ananta Shesh. So, they're not bothering him, although others may be bothered by the snakes. So Sankarshan is one of those 5 expansions, and that's the worshipable form of Lord Shiva. So that, it's one can say, yeah, but where's the connection? It's the personality of Godhead has his expansions, and the expansions have their descendants and expansions. It's like when Kaliya was in trouble with Garuda. He finally went to Anantashesh what to do, because Anantashesh and Kaliya, they're serpents. He told him what to do. He won't bother you. Go to this place. So that's the connection. It's lineage. I can't trace the lineage, but they're expansions of the original. And Sankarshan is the original. And Lord Shiva worships that form.
Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humblest obeisances, all glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Prabhupada Ki Jai.
I also have a curiosity question. So you were speaking about the birthplace of Lord Nityananda and how there's an adjacent temple across the street.
Well, the son of Lord Nityananda was Virabhadra, one of the sons. And Virabhadra's place of worship and residence is directly across the street from where Lord Nityananda appeared. That's what's across the street from him, is Virabhadra's place.
Okay, thank you. My question was, so on the altar we see Radha, Krishna, and Sri Janavi Mata. Is this Rasa Basa having Sri Janavi Mata on the altar?
Apparently not. I mean, I'm not a connoisseur of that.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently not.
Okay. Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. Maharaj was just contemplating on when we hear about Krishna Balaram Leela, there were some conflicts, apparently conflicts, like Duryodhan was favorite of Balramji, and when Bhima is fighting and he doesn't like that, but at the same time he sees Krishna and he just leaves there. Or even before the war starts, Balramji goes for the holy places. When we see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nityananda Prabhu Leela, are these experiences there just to increase the rasa, but are there any experiences pertaining to like...
It looks like conflict?
Apparently look like conflict.
That's what you're asking. The list that you gave it's quite a different dynamic, each one of those. Here's one. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to kill Jagai Madhai, Nityananda said, no. Not in this incarnation, you don't kill the demons. But kill the demoniac spirit. So please excuse them. So with Nityananda's word, that's what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did. There's another we'll hear later, and that is when Lord Chaitanya instructed Nityananda, don't return with all the devotees to come from Bengal to Puri, but you stay and don't come back again every year, but you go and preach. And 2, I want you to get married. And Lord Nityananda's going, your intimate associates, they're all renunciates. Why do you want me to get married? Is this some punishment? Have I done something wrong? And Mahaprabhu's reply was, I just see you that way. And the other explanation is I appeared in this world to deliver the holy name, but my mother has asked me to stay here in Puri, so I can't travel as I was doing. He could travel, but I can't travel. So you, on my behalf. So the 12-year younger brother is asking the older brother to do the service on behalf of the younger brother, because he's taking the position of the original personality of Godhead, from whom Nityananda is receiving some service. So it's not exactly a conflict, but it's different than what Nityananda would have wanted, but he did because it's what Lord Chaitanya wanted. Those are two examples that come to mind. You have something?
Yes, Maharaj. I was wondering, Maharaj, how do we understand, not just in the case of Lord Nityananda, but there are many avadutas that are described in the Bhagavatam, like Jada Bharata and Maharaj Bharata. How do we, why do avadutas behave in the manner that they behave?
I mean, why do they behave that way? They're exhibiting the exalted personalities are exhibiting a pastime, and the pastime is one who's not at all regarding. Let's go to Jad Bharat. It's not that he couldn't discern. In Jad Bharat's case, he was purposefully behaving as if one who didn't recognize anything, because he didn't want to have the same thing happen again that happened when he was king, Bharat Maharaj. He could discern, but he was acting as if he couldn't. Jad Bharat. Rishabdev obviously could discern because he's an incarnation of the personality of Godhead. But Rishabdev was performing a lila as if an avaduta. And in very extreme things he did. So it's an extreme manifestation of renunciation, while absorption internally. And of course, he's an incarnation, but he's exhibiting a pastime of extreme detachment from worldliness and total absorption in transcendence. So in his case, it's a lila. So it's different. It's purposeful for instructing purposes at least. Don't imitate.
Maharaj, when we hear Krishna's pastimes with Kaliya, we see that the Nagpatnis, they offer prayers to Krishna and they know so much about Krishna.
They know so much about Krishna.
So I was wondering where
they get their stuff?
Yeah, where did they get that mercy? Which, just wondering if you can share something on that.
There's no explanation, but in principle we can understand. They heard. Because you don't have that, unless you're Lord Nityananda, who's just, these are my pastimes, you don't have that understanding unless there's some teacher giving teachings. So there's no explanation that I'm aware of who is their teacher and how they get these teachings. But at least in principle we can understand. Somehow they had knowledge of the Vedas, and somehow they had teachings from a teacher about the knowledge of the Vedas, because their understandings are spot on. Elevated persons. Now, he was also an elevated person in his previous life, but he had become deviated. He had a problem. He was envious, and he had a problem because he was envious. But he had knowledge. Now, that doesn't mean that knowledge carries over to the next life, because his behavior was anything but elevated behavior. he behaved as a serpent. Very envious. So, but your specific question is, how did the wives of Kaliya get their understandings? They went to the Kaliya school.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Dandavat Pranam Maharaj. I was wondering, sometimes, like in the case of Nityananda, he got an instruction from Mahaprabhu which he didn't necessarily like. So sometimes in our life, we get instructions from our Shiksha Gurus which we don't necessarily like. So in those situations, what do we do?
Your mother's laughing. And then?
What should we do in those situations, Maharaj?
What do you do in those situations? I know what I do. Yeah, I get it. A lot depends on where the instruction is coming from, or from whom the instruction is coming. And in the case of Nityananda, he didn't like, but he accepted because it came from his beloved Lord Chaitanya. So when instructions come that you don't like, you can petition and say, can I get a different instruction? Or could you help, it's like Arjuna, can you help me understand why this instruction? Because I'm leaning that way. That's what Arjuna did. He asked sufficiently. And then when he became convinced, not just because Krishna said, but because he became convinced, I'm ready. So it's okay, in principle, not in a challenging mood, but could you explain why this instruction? And you can even say, I'm leaning, as Arjuna did, I'm leaning that way for those reasons. But you're saying this, can I hear the reasons? Why this instruction? It's not disrespectful. It's, I want clarity. Now the next question, supposing you go through that exercise and you're still like, Now what do you do? No, I'm anticipating the next question, or what might happen in somebody's case. I'm not really sure. So then you can say, can I have a little time to let's sit with this? Because I do that I process things slowly. Not necessarily, wisely, but at least slowly. So it takes me some time to and if the recommendation is coming from a source that I respect, even if I don't like it, I'm ready. A lot of the times, you and I, may not see something because we're attached. When you're attached, you got your blinders on. And somebody that doesn't have their blinders on can probably see things that you can't see because they're not attached. So acknowledging that may be the reason why I don't get it. Even the explanation is given 5 times, I don't get it, because I'm attached. So let me just accept, because here's a person I look up to. I know that they're not interested in micromanaging me. They're interested in me, in my welfare. And because I'm attached, I can't fully understand all this. But I trust their well-wishing and their wisdom, and so I'm going to go with it. I'm going to still keep, my eyes and my ears open, and my heart open to try to understand, where's this train going? I'll get on the train, but I want to be clear about where the train's going. And Krishna's kind, and Krishna will help you start to understand. Because part of it is, not everything, but from wise counsel, is to help us overcome our attachment in principle, and to get to the other side of where there's life that's not encumbered by attachment. You know, that's part of, just being frank, is part of growing up. Or, being not yet mature in the association of someone that's mature. And I value being with someone that's mature, more mature than me. And I recognize I'm not there yet. So I'm kind of uncomfortable because I'm not there yet. But I wanted, so you choose those persons to be friends or companions or advisors in your life that are trustworthy, and you ask your questions, and you can pause for a bit, but at some point you have to let go of the attachments and just not blindly jump or something, but with trust move forward. And then you can continue giving feedback. My experience is a little different than what you said it would be. And they can say what they need to say. You were right, or maybe you went too fast, or maybe it's because you're still holding on to your attachments, or whatever it is. Then that's like a friend, a guide that's also a friend, not just controlling and pushing and manipulating. They're guiding, like a good friend will do, especially with teenagers. How old are you?
I'm 13, Maharaj.
13. Okay, you hit the magic number. Welcome to the club.